Hello friends, what I have got for you today is yet another trip down on memory lane. We are going to go back in chess history as far as 1968, and I'm delivering to you two absolute bangers from world champion Boris Spassky, and his opponent is a very worthy foe who is none other than Efim, the dude who had some spectacular scores against reigning world champions such as Spassky himself, Fischer, oh, it was on the tip of my tongue. He did Karpov. He had a really good score against, and of course, when you go further back the other way in history, he also had a remarkable record. I think he played all together against 10 world champions. But today it's, well, I suppose it's a 50-50 about who this video is gonna be. Obviously, we are dedicating mostly our time to the Closed Sicilian and what these two outstanding gentlemen got out of it in their match against one another on the way to the chess crown title. So, Spassky in the white trunks and his occasionally beloved Closed Sicilian. I'm adding the occasional because, of course, Spassky did play open Sicilian a fair bit, but every now and then he went back to this love story of his with the Closed Sicilian with pawn g3. Now, what gives a very unique flavor to this video and to these two games is that Geller employed a system that is not really popular nowadays, nor was it very popular back then. And I'm going to flip the board around, but it's actually perfectly sound, and I really like playing this. So most people against this formation of the Closed Sicilian like to play the very flexible e6, followed by knight to e7, followed by castles. The bishop often goes to fianchetto here, and black has a fantastic position. However, our friend Geller here decided to play with knight f6, which is a very healthy and good-looking developing move. The reason why e6 is favored or preferred by many grandmasters around the globe is because it's more flexible. There are two things that e6 allows you to do that typically the knight f6 setups don't. Number one, we have a better access to the d4 square. So when push comes to shove and white threatens to play d4, it's super easy to shut it down and in fact to back it up. Second, and this is perhaps even more important, is that when white gears up for some kind of a kingside attack and eventually ends up playing g4, we almost always have this super obnoxious f5 push that basically fixes the pawn on f4, and thus it denies all white's kingside attacking patterns, which are fundamentally based on the idea of f5, bishop trade, and the likes that we are so familiar with. Now, with the knight on f6, these two plans, especially the f5 counterpunch, is less accessible. In fact, it's not accessible at all. As a result of that, white's kingside attack is going to be far more vicious than in the e6 setups. The upside from black's perspective is that it's faster development. It's one move instead of two. And so black is going to use that time to launch a very, very quick queenside pawn march and try to soften up the position on the queen side before tragedy would struck on the king side. For those of you who are very intrigued about opening theory, you should note that this position is actually a reverse English, by the way, that looks like this. Don't worry about the move order, I'm messing this up a little bit now, but you will get the gist. Alright? Oh, sorry, no, I did mess this up because I was meant to play f5 first, sorry. There you go. And we have got the exact same position, more or less, with reverse colors. I may have added a few moves here and there, but you get the gist. Yeah, so this is an English, basically, what we are doing here, but with reverse colors. Now, let's see how it went. And I'm going to flip back, because we want to, I suppose we want to see it from white's perspective. Castles, rook b8. You know what's going on. b4, b5. What I wanted to tell you is that I always find it fascinating to see what kind of players choose to play these setups with white and black, because there is a very interesting conflict here in the respective strategies, right? Because what black is doing is that they are going to send all these pawns, excuse me, all the way and try to soften up the queen side and feast on those positional weaknesses and try to decide the game utilizing, whatever can be accomplished here. In strong contrast, white's pawn storm, which is going to look like h3, g4, f5, bishop g5, queen e1, queen h4, yada yada yada, is designed to checkmate the king. And so there is a very big discrepancy between what we are fighting for as the respective colors. I want to mate you, you want to just soften up the queen side. And a lot of players, depending on their styles, very firmly take a stance in which side of this they like to play with. Right? So a lot of people, especially aggressively minded attacking players, you couldn't for the love of God talk them into play this with black because they just can't bear the idea that their king is getting attacked. In this regard, this opening setup is almost identical in its main feature to the mainline King's Indian, where white is just rushing the pawns up on the queen side, hoping to break through and win the game, by positional means. But every now and then we get mated on the king side if we don't do it well enough. And so again, you will find that a lot of d4 players, would never ever touch the classical mainline King's Indian because they're like, thank you, but I don't want to get mated. Anyway, so let's see. Geller, who is an absolutely fantastic all-rounder, brilliant attacker, but also a perfect positional player. In my book, the ultimate player who doesn't have a preference, or rather, they may have a preference, but they can do both equally well. He goes like, yeah, nah, you can have a go at me. And mad respect for that, by the way. Bishop e3, b4, take. And I would like to put this forward because I don't want to, give you false ideas or images or messages, but at the same time I'm probably preempting 5,000 questions too. Almost throughout both games, according to the engine, black was ahead / completely winning. I'll point out the main points where it was completely winning. So yeah, rook a8, claiming the a file, allowing the penetration on a2, which wasn't played. Rook a2 typically is met by f5, just ignoring it, and then we are going to go bishop h6. And once again, you can see that both sides are incredibly committed to accomplishing whatever they can accomplish. Although the 97-95 operation is designed to trade some attacking pieces off. But yeah, you can see that with g4 or queen f4, queen h4, now action is just about to kick off in earnest. Right, so instead Geller went queen a5, which obviously floats the idea of a b3 trade offer on occasion. So b3, rook c8. Now this is very logical, not only because the rook usually stands quite okay on the c file, especially if we float the idea of a later knight d4, but it also steps out of bishop h6 by allowing bishop f8, h8 rather, excuse me. f5, queen b6. Once again, another piece is covering knight d4. g4, rook a2. Very logical chess. Knight c1, go away. We go away. But now black is threatening knight d4. Really lovely to and fro type of chess in a level position. These kind of battles, it's like music to my eyes and all kind of senses that are associated with chess. Queen f2, queen c7. Again, knight d4 may be on the agenda because now the two heavies are hitting c2. Knight e2, logical. Rook a2, logical. Knight bc1, very logical. And queen to d8. Now, this is a really interesting move. I would have probably more preferred to play something like queen d8. Knight d7. With the idea of doing the knight e5 trade that we saw earlier. But there is a logic to this move. Black often wants to bring the queen to f8 to deny the efficiency of this trade. And also clearing the d file can be c file. Wow, can't get anything right today. The c file can be beneficial when playing for tricks like this, or occasionally knight d4 and trying to undermine c2. Knight f4. Now what is very interesting, and I really like observing this too, by the way, is how gradually, but almost certainly, Spassky keeps on ending up with having almost every single piece directed toward the king side, which definitely adds to this very oppressive feeling that one would have on the king side behind the black pieces. You cannot help but feel that it's like someone is putting like a sack of rice on your shoulder, and then another, and then another, and you just keep on feeling the weight, and it gradually kind of crushes you. And that's what this many pieces aiming at your king really feels like. Queen e8, let's switch back to white's perspective. Knight g5, knight d4, very logical chess. I have got this color image because I did that for the thumb. Takes, and knight d5. Now this, by the way, is almost a blunder. Like bordering a blunder / a mistake. But no matter what, black is actually better. Because black threats, in particular knight takes b3, but also now rook a8, rook b2, rook c2, rook a2 penetrations. It's somehow easier to see how the black queenside attack unfolds rather than how white is ending up here checkmating the black king. But knight e5, very, very serious mistake. And here black plays like an absolute boss for the next 10 moves or so. Takes, perfect. e5, Spassky is like throwing in the kitchen sink. And it's really impressive that he does that, because that's exactly what you need to do here. Clearly we are late with the attack, and so half measures are not going to cut it. Not even full measures. You need to go over the top, and that is the move that goes way OTT. Now hanging the d5 knight as well, c1 rook as well, like everything is hanging, but at least white retains the momentum. Takes. Queen h4. Now white is a full rook down, so it's absolute do or die. But now black needs to be careful, because allowing this checkmate would be rather embarrassing. And so black had to drop the knight back to f6 to clog up the f-file. And indeed, after ef, black is completely winning here, like -4. But the pressure is still on, and we are approaching time trouble. King f8, knight e4, queen e5, perfect move. Bishop f4, queen d4 check, perfect move. Rook c6, tragedy. Absolute tragedy. And the end of this game is going to be so tragic. You will see, I don't want to spoil it for you. Basically, rook d8 was the win. And it's very difficult to tell the difference between these two moves, because the purpose of the two moves is the same. It is to cover the pawn on d6. And now after bishop h6, you can simply take king e7, and white can just forget about it. There's absolutely no attack left, and we're getting absolutely gutted here with rook c2. It's over. But what about rook c6, I hear you ask? Why is this so bad? The reason why it's bad is because now after bishop h6, bishop takes, white has the cunning queen h8 check, king e7, and knight takes f6. And from here on out, it is like one of the greatest chess tragedies I've ever seen in my life. Because Geller had a completely winning position. He's still up a rook. And all he needs is just one check. One check. And it's going to be all perfectly fine. But watch it from here on out. There is never an opportunity to throw in that one check. Somehow always the diagonal, which seems so utterly exposed, I should rather draw it this way, is always sufficiently covered. Queen e8 is a mate threat. And so black has got very, very limited sources here to work with. They played bishop f4. I find it very clever, interposing on the f-file, thus making queen e8 a non-threat. But now comes g5. And again, just a silent move, but it's a mate threat, and there is no checks anyway. At all. So we have to go for a walkie-walkie. And now after queen check, king f5, queen takes f7. And yeah, black is like, no, please, no. I can't believe. It's just there is no way out. A sensational checkmate is threatened here, by the way, which I would like to show you by playing out a null move. No, that was played. Check this out. The mate that is threatened is check, 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 and mate. Ow. Ouch, man, that hurts. That hurts. So that was the reason why good old Geller played rook c7. But now after queen c7, there is still queen d7 check threatening with all kinds of dirt. And still no checks to be seen. So takes, queen e7. Now that is another bullying move of the nastiest kind. Because now after queen f6, we have got rook g1 check. I think h4 wins too though, right? Yeah, rook g1, king f5, queen e4 though is quite compelling. So yeah, but h4 wins the queen too. So Paul Geller plays queen e3, and for the first time in the game, he actually is threatening a check. In fact, mate, but too little, too late. Check, king h5, check, and queen d7, and again stop the check and threatens mate in 1. And black is helpless, and now there is nothing to be done. And after knight d5, the fork decides. Still no check available for black. I mean, to some degree, you could say that this was very unfortunate and undeserved, but Spassky did the best he could, and in the end, he got rewarded for his tenacity. Now, the other game, which I also will start from the beginning. Same players, same match, same opening, and same variation. And here too, actually this was played earlier, and here knight h4 was played. I very strongly dislike this move. There's absolutely no chance that this could be good, in my opinion. In order to facilitate f5, which is so easy to carry out with h3, g4, f5, to facilitate that by putting this knight on the edge and then having to come back with it later, it just feels all kinds of wrong to me. But who am I to judge the world champ? Knight d4, f5, b5. Very good chess by Geller again. Bishop g5, b4, knight b1. Another utterly ugly move. And actually, I did have a look at this position with a student of mine when we analyzed it, because here there is a black move that just completely shatters all white's hopes and basically refutes this whole entire knight h4 nonsense entirely. But it is such an unusual idea in this particular position that almost no one even considers it. It's extremely principled, but it just like there is this knee-jerk reaction to this move and the potential answer that makes most people go like, nah, and not even looking at it. So yeah, d5. d5. Center, by the way. But most people just look at it and they go like, oh, but e5 tempo hits the knight and then the pawns are... No, I'm not doing that. And this is where the engine is just so incredibly useful to you, because it rubs your nose into your own filth by telling you, no, you need to calculate it. Because if you did, you would find out that now the e5 pawn is dead. It's just not defensible. Better still, after the more or less forced e6, knight e5 is the genius idea. And believe it or not, but what's kicking off here is that we're going to win this and the exchange. Because now we are threatening to take e6. Know that we didn't want to take it here because of this. Although even here, black is noticeably better, according to the engine, by take whatever takes back, I don't know, and then h6. But after knight e5, now we are threatening to take this, and g6 is guarded. And when they take, we simply take back, hanging the bishop. And when the bishop goes away, g5, the knight has to go back, takes, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya, the game is over. Now you don't need to see all of this. As soon as you see that knight d7 kicks the pawns, or rather, you know, destroys the pawn center, and after e6, knight e5, well, you don't even need to see knight e5, because once again, this move just does it. But if you did find knight e5, then of course it's perfect. So yeah, essentially Spassky could have been out of this game as early as move 12. But Geller did what we probably would all have played, knight e7, because that's what we are supposed to do. Knight e2, 95. Beautiful dark square control. Perfect stuff. Black is better again. We go with the attack. Tack, tack, tack. Knight b5. The point of knight b5 is that after a3, b3, we can go on c3. In fact, very neat positional operation. Queen d2, a3, take, take. Rook e1, and this is an exchange sack, which Spassky, of course, would be super happy to see. By exchange sack, I mean that bishop c3 is coming. Rook d1 would have simply allowed rook a8, knight b5, and then knight c3 with take a2, and the mate attack is too slow. We are going to completely beat them up on the queen side before they could do anything. So rook e1. Bishop c3, queen f2, take, take, and f6. This is what Geller banked on, that now he could put all his pawns, or most of them, on black and hold the king side. But this defense, unlike the previous game where black was just completely winning, this one is extremely difficult. And from now on, I will flip back to white because I want you to observe something here. Again, every single white piece, every one of them is on the king side. And look how Spassky is going to mobilize this army. g4, e6, knight h4, provoking g5. Coming back, take, take, and now we want h4. Yeah, the white attack from here on out literally plays itself. Watch. h4, no brainer. g4, knight h2, no brainer. g3, we got to take. Knight c2, rook g1, no brainer. We need to pile up on the g file. Bishop b7, bishop f3. Again, no brainer. We want to bring the bishop in to support the attack, kick the defender. And by the way, this is the losing move. Knight d4 was a must when I think I have a line with bishop f3, rook b7, bishop h5, rook c7, d5. Yeah, these are very enginey moves, and apparently here after rook g7 we sack the exchange back, take, 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 and this is roughly equal. Instead, our good friend Geller played bishop b7, and now there was no return. Watch. Bishop h5, rook e7, knight g4. The harmony and the cooperation amongst the white pieces is just absolutely textbook. Simply marvelous. Now, isn't white blundering this? No, because now we have got queen d6, which is hitting pretty much every single black unit on the board. And white wins. Rook g8 played, queen f2. Sidestepping the pin, preparing knight f6, hitting the knight, essentially resignable. Knight d4, knight f6. Rook g1, queen g1, queen is hanging, mate is hanging. Black decided to throw in the towel. Obviously, what needed to be seen here was that after queen d8, the move that seemingly covers all mate threats. Yeah, queen e queen here. We have bishop e8. Disconnecting the queen from the from the 8th rank from its own king, threatening queen g8 mate. And if rook takes, then of course queen g7 mouse slip. Oh no, actually let's make it bishop, because then it's harder to mouse slip. Is the checkmate. So ladies and gentlemen, these were the two games that I had for you today in the No Die Classic series. It might have been a video that you know, made you want to try the Closed Sicilian with white, or it might have been a video that drew your attention to this particularly aggressive, I will call it aggressive setup for black with knight f6, allowing this really fluid and fast queenside play, but risking what ended up happening to good old Efim Geller, and that is to be overrun on the king side and get mated. Super exciting chess, and if you are playing the Closed Sicilian, I think that the knowledge of these games is an absolute must. Hence, it made its way to No Die Classics. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. Please don't forget to comment down below. Smash the like button. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.